Hey folks, welcome back to the lore of Zelda's famous locations. As per results of your voting for which game I should cover next in this series, today we'll be looking at Link's first seaside adventure, The Wind Waker. If you missed episode 1 on my favourite game of all time, Twilight Princess, then be sure to check that episode out afterwards. I'll have it linked in the description, or you can find it in the new Lore of Zelda's Famous Locations playlist. In this series, I take a look at some of the Zelda series' most famous locations across each game, and delve into their lore, backstory, and any mysteries they may have. From fan favourites to undeniably interesting places. I've picked those from The Wind Waker for today's video. These videos take a wee bit of extra research, writing, and overall production time, so I'd like to quickly plug my supporters pages across memberships and Patreon. If you'd like to financially back my videos and get yourself some rewards in doing so, then consider checking out my supporting links found in the description. It really helps to make videos like this one all the more possible. Dropping a wee like is also highly appreciated, and if you aren't already, then be sure to subscribe for more fabulous Zelda content coming your way. And now, get yourselves comfy, be sure to go and grab yourself a delicious snack and drink for the video, and let's take a look at the lore of Zelda's famous locations in The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Starting off at the heart of the kingdom, or rather, the former heart of the kingdom, Hyrule Castle. Found deep below the Great Sea, a land forgotten in time, washed beneath the waves. A bit of important backstory for not just this opening location, but the entire video, is that the Wind Waker's setting takes place at sea. This is because the game is the beginning of the adult timeline split. The branch in which the events at the end of Ocarina of Time were the gods flooding Hyrule in order to stop Ganondorf from taking over, and ultimately destroying the kingdom. In the desperate hours, the people of Hyrule fled to the mountaintops, now seen as islands, as the rest was submerged beneath the Great Flood orchestrated by the gods. However, Hyrule Castle was protected by a magical seal, stopping the flood from destroying the castle and important relics inside. It also froze the castle in time. When Link first gets down to the castle following the Tower of the Gods, he finds it still frozen. Monsters that were a part of Ganondorf's attack before the Great Flood, frozen in time. Moblins and Darknuts menacingly waiting to strike. This alone tells us how brutal the attack was. These two enemies are large brutes. They'd wipe out soldiers with ease, and the place is crawling with them. Link ventures down here in order to retrieve the Master Sword, which can be found in a chamber down below the castle, sealed over with a statue of the Hero of Time. In the chamber itself, we can see stained glass on the walls depicting the sages seen in Ocarina of Time, a nod to the Sacred Realm as well, where we see the sages in a circle much like this. Once Link retrieves the Blade of Evil's Bane required to take out Ganondorf, something interesting happens. The freeze on time defrosts. The magical seal protecting the castle from water remains intact, however, all of those Darknuts and Moblins are free, and Link must fight his way out of the castle with his new sword. It's also down here a little later on in the story that Tetra discovers her true identity, Princess Zelda, and she decides to stay down here whilst Link seeks out the Triforce of Courage. But this would turn out to be a bad decision. When Link eventually returns to the castle, Tetra has been kidnapped by Ganondorf and taken to his tower over the hills from Hyrule Castle. I'm a big fan of how, despite the fact the castle is deep below the sea, it's still decently involved in the game's story beyond just one visit for the Master Sword. It's also just a really cool version of Hyrule Castle, taking on a very fitting, cartoonish design to match the Wind Waker's art style, while still capturing the epic medieval style castle vibes. The inside contains loads of really cool details and bits of lore, such as the paintings on the wall depicting the King of Hyrule, and this one with Princess Zelda and presumably other members of the royal family. A really interesting detail to see here is that everyone in the photo around Zelda strongly resembles the pirate crew on Tetra's ship. Perhaps like Tetra being Zelda, the pirate crew are also one of the same, but just don't know it. Overall, Hyrule Castle in this game isn't massively involved, and understandably so as it's deep below the waves, but the ways in which it is involved are extremely cool and really help piece the lore and backstory of this game all together. Far in the northwest corner of the Great Sea, in the darkness of an eternal night, we can find the Forsaken Fortress. A dark stone sea fort, crawling with monsters patrolling the inside and out, searchlights scanning the place, and these big boys sniffing your feet. The Forsaken Fortress is trapped in a constant state of darkness. Regardless of the time of day, as soon as Link sails into the vicinity, the skies will rapidly turn dark. Link first visits the fortress early on in the game after leaving his home island in search for his sister. Tagging along with a pirate crew, they are led to believe his sister might be out here. In one of the series' most funny scenes, Link is catapulted into the fortress inside a barrel, the only way to enter whilst avoiding the lookouts. However, he loses his sword in doing so, and is forced into a stealth mission to get around. After sneaking his way to the top, he finds his sister in a jail cell. However, before he can free her and the other girls trapped here, a massive bird known as King Helmarok grabs him, bringing him to this mysterious man in a shipwrecked room high above, with a decision being made to toss the hero out into the darkness of the nighttime sea. So, what is this fortress that the young hero bravely entered so early on in his adventure? Well, it's where the game's main antagonist Ganondorf has been residing, the King of Evil. He's using the fortress as a hub to try and find Princess Zelda. This is actually why Link's younger sister Arl ended up here, as Ganondorf sent the Helmarok King out to find young girls that could be Princess Zelda. Thus far it has failed and would continue to, as previously mentioned. Tetra is Princess Zelda, but her true identity is protected and even hidden from herself for a large part of the game. Now, the lore of the fortress goes deeper than just this being Ganondorf's hideaway of sorts. The Forsaken Fortress was formerly a hideout for a group of no-good pirates, as said by Tetra. However, that extends just a bit deeper, as through the Hyrule Encyclopedia book, we learn that the Forsaken Fortress is actually the very same as the Gerudo Fortress seen in Ocarina of Time, the game which this timeline split originates from. We're even shown a comparison map of original locations prior to the Great Flood, and what survived as mountain peaks, now islands in the Great Sea. I made a video all about this location a few years back if you're interested in checking it out later, but to recap the key details, yes, this fortress is the very same as that seen in Ocarina of Time, according to the information provided. The canonicity of these books is questioned by some, but I personally choose to believe the large majority of it, or at least believe it, but take some specifics with a grain of salt. It's not worth the headache of overthinking, right? We can see just how well it matches up by having a look around too. Obviously it's not one for one in design, as first and foremost this is a different game, but also just due to the fact it would have had to adapt to the new setting of the world, going from desert to sea. A very drastic change, and probably a large part of why the Gerudo that once occupied here were considered pirates. In fact, in Majora's Mask, the Gerudo are pirates, but that is a different timeline split. Just a point worth mentioning that it also happened over in that timeline. Across the fortress, we can find little subtle nods and references to its origins, from the designs of the pots to the subtle blade designs carved into the stone, referencing the dual blades used by the Gerudo in Ocarina of Time, but also the insides in general. We find several holding cells across the place, exactly how it was back in Ocarina of Time, not all in the one place, rather dotted around. There's also the fact that Ganondorf chose to set up here. Being a Gerudo himself, it all adds up. Link comes back later on in the story after getting the Master Sword, this time being successful in rescuing his sister, but only after fighting through Phantom Ganon and the Helmarok King, this time not needing to sneak around as he has his sword and shield. He can also return again even later and see the fortress no longer in darkness, nor packed with enemies. This happens after Vulu attacks Ganondorf, so the darkness was likely a curse of some sorts placed by the King of Evil, now no more. Speaking of, we can also see that later on, whilst exploring Ganon's tower down in Hyrule, we find a portal of darkness connected to the Forsaken Fortress, allowing for a quick passage between the two locations. This was how Ganondorf managed to escape the sealed kingdom of Hyrule originally, and attack the life of the Great Sea. The fortress has quite the reputation from sailors and inhabitants of the Great Sea. It's known as somewhere you should avoid, and for good reason. It's Ganondorf's new home, crawling with monsters, and the former home of pirates, and once upon a time, the Gerudo Warriors. In the north of the Great Sea, we can find Spectacle Island, a wee piece of land shaped out of two small peaks and a bridge connecting them. We can find the barrel shot minigame here, run by the Great Sea's most cheerful man, Salvatore. It's set up on this small little structure on the island, with the game being set up at the very top. It's nothing more than a fun minigame which Link can even win a piece of heart from, but there's history hiding in plain sight here. The name Spectacle Island, as well as the shape of the island itself, is a reference and continuation of Spectacle Rock, a reoccurring location throughout the series which we first saw in the very first Zelda game, as well as the second, A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, and most recently in the Wilds era games. The exact location tends to move around, but this rock formation of two peaks connected by a bridge has been appearing time and time again across the series. In its first appearance, Spectacle Rock is the entrance to Ganon's lair. Now, unfortunately Ganon's tower deep below the sea isn't directly below here, though that would have been a really cool detail. There's not much more to say. The island is also one of the destinations of the ghost ship, but otherwise, it is just a small mini-game island. Despite the world being flooded and washed away, some of the world remains from the high mountaintops. This one continues a rather small, but pretty interesting piece of Zelda lore. One of my favourite mysterious locations in the entire Zelda series can be found in this game. Located, well, in several places, is the Ghost Ship. A haunting phantom pirate ship, partly wrecked and transparent, illuminated by blue flames, can be seen sailing the Great Sea and haunting 7 different islands, each one depending on the moon cycle at that given time. Wherever the ghost ship appears, the weather changes to dark stormy clouds and a chilling melody begins to play. In order to enter the ship, Link must first obtain the ghost ship chart from Diamond Steep Island, one of the 7 that the ship can be sailing by. The design of the ship itself is fairly similar to the standard pirate ship style, much like Tetra's ship, but spooky. The figurehead depicts someone praying, bits and pieces are broken, but it's on the inside that gets even more mysterious. We see the ceiling cracked open, but rather than looking outside, we see spirits flowing around, as well as these haunting faces on the floor. The ghost ship is truly controlled by spirits that haunt the Great Sea, with the enemies inside being posed in whiz robes, spiritual creatures. The ship even contains a Triforce shard in its treasure chest, or a Triforce chart in the original version of the game. Why is this found here? It adds so much more mystery to this location, and the frustrating but yet enticing thing is, we don't really know anything about the ghost ship. Was it a sailor of the royal family? Was it a past hero? It just appears and has this lore, but there's no backstory or explanation as to where it came from, who originally sailed it, and if it has a mission of some sorts, or just spends its days haunting the Great Sea. Why those specific 7 islands? What's the connection to the moon cycle? It's a great mystery of the Zelda series, and arguably one of the coolest but yet mysterious and spooky locations in the Wind Waker. To round it all off, after Link retrieves the Triforce piece, he's met with a loud demonic scream, and after that, he just wakes up on the back of the King of Red Lions, with the ghost ship never seen again. In the south of the Great Sea, we start this adventure on the peaceful Outset Island. Woken up by our sister Hyrule, Link is found fast asleep atop the lookout spot, and this is where the Wind Waker begins. The island is made up of two large islands connected by the shallow waters and this bridge at the top, linking to the Forest of Fairies. The large island is home to only few families and residents, but it's a cozy seaside settlement. It's also where Link and Hyrule live with Grandma, the parental figure in their life. They live in this home over at the end of the island, warm and homey. A family home. And Grandma's banging soup. There are other lovely personalities across the island too, such as Orca, the man who teaches Link the ways of a sword before setting off on his adventure, Zill, the Booger Kid, Sue Bell, Abe, and a few others that make up the life of Outset. A fun detail about the name is that Outset itself actually means start or beginning, which this island literally is. It's where we start and begin our adventure. The day we kick off our adventure is Link's birthday, and we learn of an Outset Island tradition where when young boys become of age of the fabled legendary hero, they're given a green tunic to wear. It's a custom here on Outset, and Link gets his green tunic from Grandma. In terms of the story, not long after Link is given his tunic, chaos ensues. Whilst testing out his new telescope, a birthday gift from Hyrule, they see a massive bird, the previously mentioned King Helmarok, and it drops somebody into the forest. Link investigates and finds Tetra up here, who seems in a rush to get back to her ship and push on. But as they head back, Hyrule is spotted waiting and waving at Link from the other side of the bridge. And in a moment of madness, the King Helmarok comes in for a second swoop and yoinks Hyrule. Link being the brave boy he is, he attempts to dive off the cliffside and grab her, but is saved by Tetra and her pirate crew, as Link was nowhere close to catching his sister. This is what kicks off the game, as Link soon after heads to the Forsaken Fortress. Later in the story, we return to Outset Island to find Jaboon, who is found living in the cave behind the island as his home Greatfish Isle, which we'll cover in a little bit, has been destroyed. We need to find Jaboon, the water spirit, in order to retrieve Nehru's Pearl. Another hidden part of the island is the Savage Labyrinth, hidden beneath this large stone watcher. It's a challenging 51 floor run with enemies, with a reward if completed. Life here is normally peaceful, rather unbothered, and the perfect place to start our adventure. In the central waters of the Great Sea, we can uncover the Tower of Gods, an old structure hidden beneath the waves, only surfaced after obtaining the 3 goddess pearls and placing them in the arms of the statues on the Triangle Islands. 3 small triangle-shaped islands that when you draw lines from island to island, a triangle is formed, a sign of the Triforce, in the centre of which we uncover the Tower of Gods. It's a sort of dungeon, but better described as the trial to test potential heroes. Link first enters on the King of Red Lions, and the first floor is a water-based puzzle level. Using the timing of the water, Link must navigate and figure out the puzzles in order to progress up to the next floor, on which he works with Servants of the Tower statue puzzles to continue proving his worth. And on the 3rd floor, he can find another puzzle to gain the big key. During all of this, he also collects the hero's bow, as well as learns the command melody. The puzzles are unique, and the challenge is fitting to test the hero, but it's the final trial which truly proves Link's worth. A boss battle against Godan, a large head and hands, similar to Bongo Bongo from Ocarina of Time, but appearing more like a creation of the Sheikah, which would make sense if it's to test the hero. But it's what follows this trial that is really interesting in terms of the lore. After ringing the bell atop the tower, Link's trial is complete, and a mysterious entrance opens in the water. Entering this glowing circle will take Link and the King of Red Lions down into the long-lost kingdom of Hyrule, specifically Hyrule Castle. The Tower of the Gods is an insanely lore-packed location with a few unanswered questions, such as who exactly built it. We can find lots of Sheikah connections, but yet very little mentions and remains of the Sheikah across this entire game. It's connected to the gods, evident by not just the name, but also the key to surfacing the tower in the first place. Link was destined to come here, and it was written in the stars by the gods. And the fact that we find Hyrule Castle directly below must mean that the tower was previously located beside the castle before the flood happened, so it would also have had a deep connection to the royal family, also evident by the fact the King of Red Lions, the actual King of Hyrule, knows all about it. It's an insanely cool location, and something I'd personally like to see appear again, or more so, something like it. A trial for the hero as part of the main story, something to prove himself. This appears to be a creation of the Sheikah going off the blue energy and unique technology, with a heavy influence from the royal family and gods of Hyrule. Found in the north of the Great Sea, we can find Windfall Island, the most populated island in the entire Great Sea. It's a bustling market town with shops, a school, lighthouse, jail, bomb shop, and a nice little community that lives here. This is where Link first meets the King of Red Lions after being launched out of the Forsaken Fortress on his first visit. He wakes up lying on the talking boat by the shores of Windfall Island. Link naturally goes and explores the island and meets everyone, including the fan favourite, fabulous, criminal, Tingle. It's a pretty standard island at base value, but there's lore and mystery to uncover. It's said that Windfall is where most people from Castletown and Kakariko Village fled to this former mountaintop, now island. However, there have been theories and suggestions that this is possibly Kakariko Village itself. Fellow Zelda tuber Zeltic made a theory on this exact topic a little while back. I'll link it below if you want to check it out later. Now, something interesting to note is that the music for Windfall Island shares bits and pieces from Ocarina of Time's Kakariko Village, further tying their connections together. I personally headcanon Windfall Island as a sort of new Kakariko Village, but the truth isn't exactly detailed and fully known. Towards the west of the Great Sea, we can find Greatfish Isle, a not so great condition wrecked island. Homes tossed and turned over the rocks, the rock itself split and destroyed. This place is a haunting ghost town, a former home in Hylian Village, now in ruin. But how did this happen exactly? Well, the backstory and lore to this seemingly small wrecked village is that Greatfish Isle is the former home of Jaboon, the water spirit, as well as being a small, highly unpopulated village, one of those previously mentioned mountaintops that the people fled to as the Great Flood broke out. The condition we find Greatfish Isle in today is the work of Ganondorf. The King of Evil took out his anger on this innocent village, turning it upside down and wiping it clean out. The attack is described as horrific and brutal. Ganondorf likely didn't take prisoners. Some, such as Jaboon, may have escaped, but it's likely some of the residents of the island were part of Ganondorf's destruction. The only residents we can find now are the travelling merchant and Korok Linder, both standing alone in the hollowed out village. Tingle himself actually tells us that this place was rather nice in its prime, indicating that it definitely had visitors from across the sea. An interesting wee piece of lore goes back to that previously mentioned comparison map from Ocarina of Time. Apparently back in the day, this was the location of Lake Hylia. Obviously not with a water level this high, but somewhere deep below Lake Hylia would have been found. The only other notable information is that we find a Triforce shard in the shallows around the island, but otherwise Greatfish Isle is a tragic story. A cute wee village out at sea that was brutally wiped out and made unrecognisable by Ganondorf's rage and destruction. In the southeast of the Great Sea, we can find the Forest Haven and Forbidden Woods, two twinning forest islands that contrast hard in their conditions. The Forest Haven looks relatively healthy and welcoming, and the Forbidden Woods looking dangerous and closed off. The Forest Haven is a paradise-like home of the Koroks and Great Deku Tree, encased within the hollowed out tree trunk of a former Deku Tree, one formerly much larger than the current. At first, we find the Deku Tree infested with Choo-Choos and need to help sort that out, and afterwards we're eventually rewarded with the Deku Leaf, an item that allows Link to sail through the air, as well as nudged in the direction of the Forbidden Woods. This haven is a protected area for the Guardian of the Forest. In Ocarina of Time, the Deku Tree was protected in the depths of the woods. However, due to the new conditions of the world, he's been forced to adapt, but it hasn't been smooth sailing. These darker and more menacing woods across from the forest haven once served as the home for the Koroks, but now it's infested with monsters and completely overgrown. A wee Korok by the name of Makar is trapped after not listening to the Deku Tree and flies over the Forbidden Woods, ending up trapped inside. This place was once peaceful, but is now a nightmare for the little Koroks. We can even see the history inside with the Kokiri markings on the doors. Speaking of which, that's a rather interesting bit of lore to go into. Koroks are the evolution of the Kokiri, the young children of the forest seen in Ocarina of Time. The effects of the Great Flood and adapting to the new seaside lifestyle have turned them into these adorable little creatures. I love Koroks, especially a little Korok. The Forbidden Woods is also the third dungeon in the game, and given the backstory of it being the former home of the Koroks, possibly even dating back to the days of the Kokiri, it's pretty cool. The boss and mini-boss are also plant-based enemies, which fits the theme well, and at the end of it all, we rescue Makar, and are rewarded with not only Farore's Pearl, but also this really cute Korok concert in the Forest Haven. Now for the final famous location that I've chosen to cover in the lore of Zelda's famous locations, the Wind Waker edition. Roost Island. Without a doubt, the best place to go solely just to sit and vibe to the soundtrack. Roost is very well known for its music alone, a fast-paced catchy tune that perfectly captures the vibes of this volcano, Rito-inhabited island. Found in the northeast of the Great Sea, this is the home of the Rito tribe, the very first appearance of the Rito in fact, and right off the bat, this is some interesting lore. The Rito are the evolution of the Zora seen in Ocarina of Time, forced adaptation to the new flooded setting. They went from aquatic fish people to flying bird people. The Zora in Ocarina of Time did just fine in the fresh water of the rivers, Lake Hylia and Zora's domain, but it appears the salty water of the Wind Waker's Great Sea wasn't suitable for them, forcing this rather quick evolution into the Rito. On the inside, we can find the mail center run by the Rito, a massively connected postage system that connects the entire world of the Great Sea. We see these red post boxes across the islands of the sea. These are run by the Rito Postal Service, and right here on Roost is where everything is sorted and sent out. An interesting and slightly questionable piece of lore goes back to the comparison map we've been referring to across this video. According to it, Roost Island was formerly Zora's domain, which kind of makes sense given the Zora turned into the Rito, but what doesn't fully add up is where this volcano came from. Granted, Death Mountain is not far from Zora's domain, so perhaps they sort of merged over time. Which, while sounding odd, is a very common thing in Zelda games. Geography is never one for one, but often closely connected, just not 100%, and this makes sense as having each game one for one would become too repetitive. If Zora can evolve into birds in this short time frame, I'm sure land can merge as well. Roost Island isn't just the home of the Rito, however, it's also home to the game's second dungeon, Roost Cavern. A volcanic cavern which is normally ventured by young Rito children in order to reach the sky spirit Valoo, who you may have noticed sitting at the top of the mountain earlier. This is in order to receive one of his scales, a Rito tradition for them to grow their wings. However, recently the sky spirit has been enraged, and for reasons not known to the Rito, who have in recent times been unable to venture up to visit Valoo. This is why Link enters the cavern, to find out what's going on. The inside is dangerous with fire geysers, bokoblins, keese, magtails and other enemies crawling around. On the outside sections we find Kargaroks pecking at Link as well. It's a thrilling adventure and concludes with Link discovering that the reason for Valoo's rage is the dungeon boss, Goma. A lava-based take on Ocarina of Time's Queen Goma, pulling on the tail of the Sky Spirit, causing understandable irritation. If someone was yanking my chain without me wanting it, I'd probably be annoyed too. Link sorts this out by slaying the beast with the help of his new item, the grappling hook, which by the way is so epic to use up here, and brings peace back to Valoo and Dragon Roost Island. Following this, Prince Kamali of the Rito gives Link's Din's Pearl as a thank you for helping them, which would later be used to surface the Tower of the Gods. Dragon Roost Island is one of the most iconic and well-known locations, not just in the Wind Waker, but the series as a whole. Its epic design and banger soundtrack are just two base factors as to why, and a fun little reference is that in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Rito Village's theme is actually a rendition and callback to Dragon Roost Island's theme. But the island itself contains a lot of cool lore, from the Rito history and current situation to being the home of the Sky Spirit, Valoo. The only appropriate way to end this video in my opinion is to just have a wee listen to Dragon Roost Island music play us out into the horizon. Enjoy! Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of the lore of Zelda's famous locations. If you did, be sure to drop a wee like down below and subscribe for more fabulous Zelda content. Both are very much appreciated. What did you think of the video? Did you learn anything new or interesting? Of course I didn't cover literally every location in the game, but I chose those that I felt were the most interesting. However, if there's any I missed that you want to see covered in a future video, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. As always, a massive thank you goes to my channel supporters for the amazing backing of the channel, making videos just like this one all the more possible. If you'd like to financially support my videos as well as get yourself access to my weekly Inside Scoop post, your name at the end of my videos, and a shout out upon joining, then consider supporting via the links below. You can also find my socials and Discord server down there. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.